I'm Chase Stanton, and this is an episode of Saline Speaks. Today I'm joined by Jim Roth, who is a councilman here in Saline and also a board member for the Saline Historical Society. So thank you for coming in and joining me.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and you know, it's been a pleasure to be a resident of Saline. I came to Saline in 1967, and my initial plans was to have my first job of teaching, and while I was teaching in the area, I would get my master's degree at either Eastern Michigan or Michigan, and I was able to do that. I completed my master's degree within a year and a half and taught full-time at Saline. I thought I could leave after the end of 2 years, but here it's 2013, I'm still here, enjoying the community. I certainly appreciated all my teaching experience at Saline schools, and the subject I taught was graphic arts, and I also helped out sometimes with a cooperative education program. And I was able to be very close to the printing industry because I came off the farm in Ohio, worked for the R&R Donnelly Company in Willard, and that was the United States' largest commercial printing company at that time, and really thought I might make a career out of it, but then I decided teaching is what I really wanted to do. Got my degree in it, and my choice was either electronics or printing. Coming to Michigan, I could be credited for my industrial experience with the Donnelly Company, so I was able to get vocational certification along the same time as I got my master's degree and started, besides agriculture and home economics, I was the first trade and industrial program for vocational education here in Saline. So I watched and worked that grow and worked with many kids through the years, got their interest as far as making a living in printing, and surprising, I marked my satisfaction as far as what the students have done, and that's been a wonderful thing. And some of them own their own plants and come a long ways, way ahead of that. And with the electronics and printing combined, I was able to kind of keep up with where the technology has gone today, and it's really changed a lot. And I've always kind of felt, besides working for the schools, I was actually working for the printing industry, and kind of up until the time I retired in 1997 is when I retired, and until that time I thought I was placing kids in the industry. Anybody wanted a job, they could have a job. But sorry today that with electronics and all the other new technology and where we're at, the printing industry doesn't hold that good position, but still is an excellent place to work.
Yeah, and the program has done a great job here of meeting those requirements that everything's changed along with. So it's kept up really well.
Yeah, you know, about 1994, I had the envision. I called a program not just graphic arts or printing, we call it visual imaging technology. And here's where we encompassed the TV, working with computers, websites, and incorporating where our country was going as far as communications. My thoughts were this industry should be, and it's coming that way, if a person or a company has a need to communicate and visually communicate, we would be the experts, help them out with whatever medium they want to have. And definitely going with websites and going with TV, that is an integral part of it. So communications moved a long way from the printed word. And the companies that could keep up with that and offer that kind of services, I envision they would be the ones of the future. They are of the present, and the more they come specialized in their areas and move with it, they're the ones who are going to have to succeed.
Now, you mentioned that you were raised in a farm community. Is that kind of what appealed to you about Saline, since it also has roots in that agriculture? Yes,
it did, because at that time the Saline was very, very similar to the community I grew up in, Ohio. There was greater percentage of farmers at this point at the time, and 3 of the school board members were farmers.
Yeah.
So I seemed to fit right in right away, and enjoyed it. And I enjoyed working along with, as far as the FFA. And I was an honorary member of their group and did a lot of judging for their contests and so on, and worked close with them. So it was always enjoyed and still enjoy farming. And I think that's what's got me involved with, as far as the Historical Society.
Yeah.
That with the Historical Society, they had the Rentschler Farm, and I ended up fitting to be a docent in there because my early childhood fits right in with the timeline of the Rentschler Farm. So I can talk about horses. We had horses, and I've seen going from horses to tractors to the one-row corn picker to the multi-row corn pickers, and same with the planting and the technology change in farming. It's quite interesting. And the farmhouse that we have here it's furnished much nicer than the home that I grew up in. We just didn't have the niceties. We were able to get by and scratch out a living. My father bought his farm, and he couldn't do it by paying for farming itself. He got a job on the railroad, and that fits in with the next part of the Historical Society, the Railroad Museum, that my heart really goes when I don't get around a steam engine or trains and that, because I was lucky that Father would work the afternoon shift, and he would come home and pick up my brother and I, bring us back to work with him, and we wouldn't dare be with him, but we got to ride the steam engines that were in the yard, the railroad yard. So on the turntables and all that type of stuff. We had friends of the engineers, and they took care of us, left us shovel the coal into the steam boilers and that type of stuff. I also had an uncle that was a fireman for another railroad, and I could spend days with him. So that was a great childhood. So
Yeah.
I was very, very, very lucky that my upbringing and knowing what work was about and be exposed to some different industries. And my shop teacher in high school is the one impressed me. I saw what he was doing, enjoyed what he was doing, was practical knowledge, and I thought I could do as good a job as he, maybe even better. So he inspired me and went on. And finding the Saline schools, the philosophy at that time was that, this is back in the late 60s, that so many kids were going to college, they rated by college, but Superintendent Harold Hentz says that we really would like to judge how many kids complete college. That percentage going was quite high. Those completing wasn't much, significantly lower number, and he felt that if the schools could give them something that they can be employable skills, that's what we need to do, because these kids need to be prepared for work as well as for college. And with that philosophy, I bought in right away.
So your involvement with the Historical Society, did that begin after you ended teaching, or were you involved at the time with both?
I've been involved with the Historical Society by taking photographs for them for many years. That they had special events, also the chronicle, that a lot of the items that they have, that it could be chronicled, that they knew what was in the house, what was in the farm, and they had special events. I was their photographer. My rate that I charged them was very low, and it's the same way today, that it's just a good group. And my heart is with them, and through the years, it wouldn't be with the hard work of many individuals, and they are working very hard. And they approached me saying that they needed some replacements on the board, and they're going to move some people into a different emeritus status. And I replaced Warren Rentschler when he went into emeritus status. So that's rather an honor. That helped them along, but that brought on many more new duties. So it's much more concerned, and I'm glad to be part of that team, and only a small little number of the team who is taking on the good challenges of preserving history. And I love history, that I like what's going on, so I enjoyed dressing up in the farmer clothes like I did as a little kid, or my dad did when we worked on the farm. The bib overhauls are fun things to do, and I would love to have a conductor's outfit to go with a museum. And I was very lucky with my teaching experiences. I also love to travel. And as soon as the year I finished my master's degree, I spent the summers traveling, and I traveled through the Orient, and the director of Musical Youth International, Mrs. McCoy, picked me up and says, I need your help taking photographs, but she needed my help with the organization far as being in charge of the male personnel. And then she ended up moving along as far as need more help with far as overseeing some of the management of it and supporting her far as payment of the bills and so on, and making the trips work. So I was able to travel, see parts of the world, help kids out, and it was a great group of kids, an orchestra and a band that went along with it. When that broke up in the mid-'80s, Bob Phillips had the idea of Saline Fiddlers Philharmonic, and Bob and I were very good friends. I always worked very closely with the music department, and I was part of a dream that he had as far as with the fiddlers, and worked with him and his wife, and our job was to make sure everything would work. That he had more dreams than he had time or money, so we had to help him, keep him in line. And I stayed with them, and when the separation between the Saline Philharmonics, the split to Saline Fiddlers and Fiddlers Restrung, I stayed with the school, the community education program, and helped them out as a tour manager and planning their tours, and it's been great working with the students there. And this is pretty much after my retirement, which is great, and great to work with the Saline kids.
Yeah.
There's a fine group of kids out here, and it's great positive for the future. And 5 years ago, I decided to retire from that and got more involved with the historical part. Back when I was teaching graphic arts, 35 or more years ago, I decided that since it's printing week, Ben Franklin was the master of printers or father of printing, I got a costume and dressed up like Ben Franklin to surprise my students in a night at an open house that we had. That caught on, so the Ann Arbor Litho Club and Detroit Craftsman's Club and Printing Industries of Michigan latched on for when they had their printing week banquet. They've always had me part as being the greeter, dressed up as Ben Franklin. My interest with Ben Franklin and that particular area of history brought it into the French and Indian War, and I had the opportunity to join a reenactment group that portrays the French and Indian Wars. And the group I'm with is called a Bagley Group, and it comes out of Amesbury, Massachusetts. We recreated their uniforms the way they were. We tried to live their lives, and at several festivals throughout the state of Michigan and some great events, grand encampments, where some different forts or so celebrate anniversaries. We attend and put on the mock battles and have a great time, and it's fun sharing the history, living history with the spectators that come in. So I love too many things: trains, farms, kids, photography, and I worked with the photography club for Saline schools and community education for a good 25 years. And my enjoyment is seeing other people learn, be happy, and I like to see their achievements more than rather than mine.
So with all these interests, what led you to decide to run for city council?
Well, what made me run for city council is that I had some interactions with the council as being a resident through the years, and I made a particular request thinking that the Union School should be maintained and owned, since it was property of the citizens, that it would remain property of the citizens and be a good center for maybe the arts center, lots of great possibilities. And if the city could take it over and eventually develop it, not immediately develop it, as far as some of the needs that we have foreseen. And I felt my voice wasn't really heard. And with my voice not being heard, I thought I needed to check into things further and realize that maybe it's time that I should give back to the community and represent a different segment of the community, that more, maybe the more citizens along my age line and a conservative amount. And there are several projects that we citizens would talk about and question why the city was involved with it, and I really didn't know. But getting on council, I was able to find out, and it's been a great learning experience for me. And I find out that my colleagues on the council are very hard, dedicated people. I enjoy being with them as part of a team. I enjoy having at least a say. I'm not sure as far as what the influence is going to be, but it's something that to have a chance. And I would welcome anybody to get a hold of me and let me share with what your concerns are. So luckily or unluckily that my phone's not in the phone book. I've asked many times for it to be. It's the same number I had back in 1967. It's there, so if anybody has any old records of it, but it's 429-4063, so you can feel free to call, or you can contact City Hall and they'll give you the information on that. So I'd love to be able to represent some of your thoughts. Can't make any promises because I'm only one voice, but that might help as far as the overall decision-making thing. I'm for keeping the city within their means. It's been a great place. I want it to continue being a great place. I want our schools to be great. I want our citizens to be able to achieve as much as possible. And I don't like to see a burden put on our future citizens. So I'd like to have it that live within our means. And maybe as far as I can't promise you we won't raise taxes because inflation's going up. Everything else is going up, and the property values have been going down, and there's a chance that it's returning, but it'll take a while to get back to where it was. So to make ends meet, I want to do it that is right and fair for everybody. Yeah. So I can't make any promises on that.
A lot of challenges to face.
That's right, and it's good that I have a chance for it, that I hope I can represent your people with the challenges, and it's always will be a challenge. Or I can see that it's a great place. We want to have our sense of place and the activity with the Main Street program, our Historical Society, all of our churches, our schools, and the sports activities, the music activities. We are lucky to be part of this community. Yeah. And it's a great place.
Well, is there anything on the horizon you would want to mention or let people know about, either with City Council or with the Historical Society?
Well, the Historical Society closes their Rentschler Farm for the winter season, and they're going to reopen, and it's usually mid-May, and I believe it's the second Saturday in May. That would be May 11th that they'll be starting this year. Okay. And we open from 11 to 3, and that will go on through August. July 20th is a big celebration through the Historical Society. It's the 150th birthday of Henry Ford. Oh. So they're having a big celebration there at the farm. So Henry Ford was quite active in Saline. It was one of his farming communities. The present place is Weller's. That was one of his mills that he had, and a little white building behind it that they have. The little barn that was used for doing a lot of soybean oil research. So he did a lot of adventure. A lot of the farmers in this area were commissioned to raise soybeans for him, and so he looked at this general area here, Clinton, Tecumseh area, and Boysville area. It's a lot of these farms is what he looked to, and was quite involved with this stuff here. And we were lucky that back in 1968, 69, the Ford plant came to Saline, and they have been a good tax base for us, for the schools and for the city. So we're fortunate to have that type of manufacturing facility located with us. So yes, Saline has been kind of a Ford community, even though it's not Ford today, it's Forcia, but its roots come from the Ford plant. So we're going to have a good program that particular day, and tractors, cars, the whole thing. And we also having a person that with the Ford Foundation is going to be on giving a presentation. He may even portray himself as Henry. Yeah. So Saline has been involved with the technology and what's going on for some time. And we had a Ford plastics plant here. Well, Henry himself, he explored making cars, especially the rear bumpers and fenders or bumpers with it, and trunk area out of plastic. He was experimenting with that. So he made it for himself. It never got on production, but he was looking at that as a material to replace. But I think the weight of it kind of didn't work quite right.
I know you mentioned your phone number, but is there other contact information for any constituents or just anyone in the community who would want to contact you?
Well, my email is a simple one, and it's been one I've had for many years, and it's my last name, Roth, R-O-T-H, then it's BigNet, BIGNET.net.
Okay.
And that's been a carryover from a company that's been bought out many, many times.
And then you also have a email through the city, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And the first part of it is J Roth, and then the rest of it is at. Then you'd have to look as far as what the common stuff is for the city.
Yeah. Well, great. Is there anything else you'd want to mention, or?
Well, I just want to mention that I encourage everybody to be an active part in our community. Give as much time as you can. There's many, many ways of volunteering. Well, I also want to mention part of my council duties is being a representative for the youth council.
Okay.
And they are a great group of people. They're true inspiration for us. Schools are worth it, and there's a good look for our future, and I want to keep that going. So it's something that's great. I want people to continue to enjoy. Find your niche. I've also worked with the Celtic Festival for 9 years. I was on their governing board and really appreciate how the community rallies together for that 2-day event, and like to see, you can't beat anything when you see a community rally volunteer together like that. So I'm also proud that our school system is putting up with the challenging times and maintaining its status, and students are getting things out of it, and I'm glad to see the technology. And this facility that I'm sitting in now is a pure dream that I had with one of the visual imaging technology program. We didn't have the digital stuff.
Yeah.
We were all at the analog, and when it come to splicing and so on, that was a super chore. And it still amazes me today how you could stick something in the middle of a tape.
Yeah. Well, I think people definitely learned a lot more about you and what you're passionate about in the city, and if they can contact you, easy ways to get a hold of you. So thank you for coming in, and thank you for doing the interview. I appreciate it.
And the contact information, you should forget it, just contact City Hall, and they can share that information with you.
Great. Well, thank you again for coming in. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for watching. Be sure to check at the end of the video for ways to get a hold of Jim, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
This has been an SCTN production.